Hello and welcome. This is Peace News. It is Sunday, July 27th, 2014, and we are recording live from Keene in the Shire. I'm your host, Derek J. Learn about me at derekj.me. You can catch video of this program at peacenewsnow.com/live. There you'll see a chat room. You can interact with other listeners. You can submit questions to me or some of the guests on the show. You can also call in and take control of the show. If you've got topics you want to talk about, as long as they fit into the category of peaceful resistance, let's talk about it. Our call-in line is 443-424-8347. You can find that listed on our website or Skype into the program at Peace News Now. You just send a contact request, it will be accepted, and then you can dial in and connect with us. So what are we talking about today? When do you have to show ID to a cop? It's a big question. A lot of people don't know the answer. You have to look up the laws in your home state. You might have to test the laws, try them out yourself, but generally there are a couple of good rules to follow. We're going to show some videos of people being asked for ID and being successful in refusing that. Why would you refuse to give ID? Some people want to live a private life. I myself don't have an issue with living publicly. I publish pretty much everything I do to the internet by video recording it and then posting it to different YouTube sites and blog posts. But there are some people who value their privacy a lot more than me. And even I, when confronted by police officers, want to retain my privacy, at least in that moment, because I know that they're going to use my identification to make some sort of notation or police log about their interaction with me, and then I end up on some database. I don't want that. You know, where is this information going after the police collect it? We don't really know if it trickles its way up to the feds or any other nefarious agency related to torture or kidnapping people. So, hey, I want to stay away from these goons. I'm not trying to give them any more ammunition, like identifying information, if I'm not required to. So what about you? Well, if you're like Kevin Suter, who was driving down the road at around 1 a.m. when he got pulled into a shopping center to see what half a dozen cop cars were doing there, you may be questioned about, what are you doing here? We need to see some ID. Well, what are the rules on that? Well, for Ken, upon pulling in, he was quickly stopped by St. Peters, Missouri police officers who began the interrogation. What happened next was nothing short of rights-flexing mastery, writes the author at freethoughtproject.com. Suter was so confident about being in the right that he was able to drive off from this officer without being shot at or followed. Enjoy this wonderful moment caught on film. And for those of you who are listening along, you can enjoy the audio version. You can hear them speak quite plainly. This video from Paradigm Shift. So the video reads, while driving down Mexico Road in St. Peters, Missouri at 1 a.m., I noticed about 5 or 6 police cars in the parking lot of a strip mall center near Grand Tenton Drive. I decided to pull into the parking lot and see what all the fuss was about when a St. Peters police officer on foot started flashing his flashlight at me in an effort to get me to stop. This is the encounter that took place when I stopped my vehicle.
Hi there, how are you? Can I help you with anything?
You came to me.
Right, we got an incident over here, and I saw you driving across the lot. I was seeing if you were related to that incident.
Do I look like I'm related?
I have no idea, sir. You have your ID I can see?
Well, what crime do you suspect me of committing?
A burglary?
You suspect me of committing a burglary.
We have a burglar over here, and you're leaving the lot.
No, I think that you're pulling strings. I think you're stretching.
Okay. Can I have your name, please?
No, you can't.
Okay.
And he just drives away. He's not shot at, chased, or anything. Now, he writes in the video that if I hadn't been videotaping, I believe this encounter would have been much different. As you can tell by his demeanor, this officer seemed very reluctant to push the issue further. Because he was on camera, he was forced to do things, quote, by the book. and was prevented from violating my rights. Although there was a burglary in the strip mall, which would have been construed as reasonable suspicion to ask me for ID, I felt that by him saying he had no idea if I looked related, he had no right to pursue the interrogation, and felt comfortable withholding it and driving away. And judging by his actions, or lack thereof, I believe he felt the same way. Just a brilliant video by this man. He's right that carrying a video camera does change the situation when police know that they're going to be held to an objective record of what is happening, of their actions. They will be held to account, whether in court or by the court of public opinion, and it changes the way they act. They want to have better behavior. And who among us wouldn't want to be our best behaved on camera? Especially if you're collecting your paycheck by taxpayer dollars. There's a lot of people out there who are going to see what you're doing and may not like it, may write to your boss. They consider you, officers, their employees. After all, they pay for you. So just something to think about. But when can you just drive off? When are you really free to go? This man didn't ask any of the classic questions about am I being detained? Am I under arrest? Am I free to go? Well, it's important you know your rights. The freethoughtproject.com has a blog post posted recently by Brandon Davies, Esquire, a lawyer who writes, "Cops love to overstep their bounds and trample on your rights. Some people choose to just do what they're told and let the cops tell them what to do. Some people choose to go along to get along. But if that isn't you, if you want to exercise your rights when confronted by the man, then this article is for you." The go along to get along folks might say, well, why are you doing that? Why are you being difficult? You haven't done anything, so why don't you just do what the cops ask? They're just doing their jobs. Stop being so difficult. To the go along to get along folks, he says, the liberties of our country, the freedom of our civil constitution, are worth defending at all hazards, and it is our duty to defend them against all attacks. We have received them as fair inheritance from our worthy ancestors. They purchased them for us with toil and danger and expense of treasure and blood, and transmitted them to us with care and diligence. It will bring an everlasting mark of infamy on the present generation, enlightened as it is, should suffer them to be wrestled from us by violence without a struggle, or to be cheated out of them by the artifices of false and designing men. No, that isn't a quote from Brandon Davies, Esquire. It's a quote from Samuel Adams, over 200 years ago. Now, for the people that are tired of the intrusion, who are tired of the people who weren't cool in high school and are now in a uniform wielding the sliver of power that they have over everyone, here is what you can do. Exercise the rights you have. When you have an interaction with a police officer and they ask you to identify yourself, here are your legal rights. And remember, there is a point that we need to clarify before we get started. Producing identification and identifying oneself are two different things. To clarify, producing identification means providing law enforcement with a physical object that identifies who you are. Identifying yourself can be a simple communication of your first and last name. We'll get into when do you have to give your license to a police officer and the factors that are considered in determining if at a specific instance it is satisfied by the test. So we've got some tests for you, some information could save you from a trip to jail after this. When do you have to give your ID to a police officer? And when do you have to identify yourself? And what's the difference? You are only required to produce your actual physical driver's license in two separate scenarios. One, if you're the driver in a motor vehicle that is pulled over in a checkpoint that comports with Brown v. Texas, and more specifically, State v. Deskins. Now, sometimes it can be to your advantage to memorize court cases so that you can reference them, show that you're informed about the topic if a law enforcer is doubting your expertise. But this is not something that I practice because I don't want to rely on what some Supreme Court justice said about my rights. Who are they except for lawyers in black dresses? Not really an authority in my mind, but this is what some people like to rely on, and it is admittedly an effective tactic. Now here's the applicable test according to Brandon Davies. Weighing the gravity of the public concerns served by the seizure, the degree to which the seizure advances the public interest, and the severity of the interface with individual liberty. That's from Brown v. Texas. And the factors that are considered in determining if specific instance is satisfied by the test, oh boy. Numerous conditions and factors must be considered in determining whether a DUI roadblock meets the balancing test in favor of the state. Among the factors which should be considered are, 1, the degree of discretion, if any, left to the officer in the field, also the location designated for the roadblock, the time and duration of the roadblock, standards set by superior officers, advance notice to the public at large, advance warning to the individual approaching motorist, maintenance of safety concerns, degree of fear or anxiety generated by the mode of operation, average length of time each motorist is detained, physical factors surrounding the location, type, and method of operation. Boy, this article is written by a lawyer. You can tell. Boring. I just want to skip. I mean, I thought this was important to share. This is important information, but do lawyers have to make everything so boring? With all of these notations in court cases and citations in 1979, 469, U.S. 221, 1985. This is so irrelevant. When do you have to tell an officer your name? Well, it depends on the circumstances. An officer can always ask you your name, but just because they ask doesn't mean that you have to answer. You're only obligated in certain scenarios. Additionally, in some instances, even if he or she does have the right to ask, and the requirements are met that would require you to answer, the state may have no mechanism to prosecute you, even if you refuse to identify yourself. Complicated, right? This is the only time you're obligated to identify yourself, other than the two scenarios listed above, in which you must provide a physical identifying document. You only have to identify yourself when the officer is stopping you because he or she has reasonable suspicion that you may be involved in a criminal activity. So you can also still refuse if you have a reasonable belief that identifying yourself will incriminate you in a crime. Now here's the example of that man who was just driving off when asked to identify himself. He gave the officer a question saying, do you believe me to be guilty of committing a crime? The officer said, well, there's a burglary here and you're going away, so it might be you. He said, do you think it's me? And the officer said, I have no idea. Well, he just admitted that he doesn't have reasonable suspicion that this guy committed a crime, so the man is free to go. He knew the rules and he acted on them. It was brilliant, and I applaud more behavior like his. I want to share with you also something interesting that happened to me this week. While I was doing exactly this, going through a police checkpoint, people were asked for their IDs and if they had been drinking that night, a couple of other invasive questions, and I was trying to encourage people to steer clear from the checkpoint, to avoid it if they want to. And after, unfortunately, a man was arrested, And, well, this is what happened next. Hey everyone, so if you caught my last video, a man in Manchester was arrested last night for the crime of honking his horn. And then from what I saw, it seems like the police alleged that he refused a sobriety checkpoint, but he in the video said that he did not refuse. Now if you go back and check from my YouTube channel, you can see the raw video there. But afterwards, I went with a few other activists to the jail to see if he had been booked and to see if possibly he could be bailed out. When we got to the jail, we encountered some difficulties with police. Here's that video.
I stopped by the front entrance because someone I just met got arrested, but I wasn't able to ring the doorbell. I don't think anyone was there. Okay, where can I find booking 1034? I'm actually right in front of 1034. That's the doorbell that we rang, but no one answered. Okay, thank you.
You coming up?
She said she'd let booking know that we're outside.
They already said so. We talked to them on the phone.
I called the jail, wanted to speak with someone in booking, let them know that we were out here, and they're not answering our doorbell.
Sidewalk, you guys are all set on the sidewalk, not on the property.
How do we get in touch with them?
I don't know if they can answer or not. I don't know.
They just did. They were on the phone. They said come to the door. They said come to door number 1034.
They told us.
And it looks like there's someone who's coming to the door to greet us. So thank you very much for your help. I think we're all set.
I wasn't coming for you, I was coming for them.
Okay. I think we're all set.
Okay, if you want to film, come down onto the sidewalk. You can't film up on the property.
I can't film inside?
We're not going to have you film inside, no.
Okay. Where's the rule on that? So this police car came up to us and then told us to come around.
We told us,
so
I would appreciate it if you come down here and do it if you want to do it.
Is that a request or an order?
No, it's not a request, I'm asking you.
So is it not an order?
Why are you covering your face? What's your name?
I appreciate it, thank you, have a nice night.
What is your name?
Thank you, have a nice night.
Excuse me, sir, what is your name?
What's your name?
So this guy, he goes away and he hides out in the corner, so I come over to him and go to ask him his name. Now he requests ID from me and I'm not required to give that. Caron, C-A-R-O-N. And what's your deputy's name? What's your friend's name here? I'm not required to give that to you. Well, I think that you should be accountable to the public who pays your salary. What's your friend's name here? Excuse me, sir, what's your name? Hey, deputy, what is your name? So you can see the police don't want to identify themselves, but they're quick to ask you who you are. What's your ID? Give me your information. I don't have to tell you who I am. I'm just some thug in a uniform. Welcome back to Peace News. Our topic today is, do I have to show ID? Usually you don't. Here's another video of an encounter with two individuals. One is pulled over and the passenger is accused of being an anarchist for refusing to give her ID. Give a listen.
Stay pulled over for you.
Okay, so a guy is pulled over, he's reaching for his ID.
Yeah.
You want to grab my insurance over there?
I don't know where it is.
Can I grab my insurance? I got a headlight out.
Yes, you do.
I'm aware of it too.
Okay.
It's got an electrical problem. Hang on.
Probably not a good idea to admit to doing something wrong right off the bat.
Vancouver.
Vancouver, all right. Enjoying the 4th of July, or?
No, not yet.
That's tomorrow.
Where you guys going?
We're going to my
Oh,
house, which is
right
right
here.
there.
Okay.
Smart thing
There's
for
that
this
part.
young lady to be recording this interaction. If you're ever pulled over, pull out a video camera, turn your phone camera on, get a recording of it, at least audio. It is your right to record an interaction with law enforcement.
Give you your registration back. Yes, your registration. I'll hold on to your insurance here.
You never know when it could be useful, like perhaps in this encounter.
Okay.
It's also good to let the officers know that they are being video recorded, as this man just did.
In a few days, but here it is. It's nice and valid. Be right back with your driver's license.
I thought that was an interesting point the officer made. Oh, it's going to be expired in a few days, but it's nice and valid now. There's just some magic wand that gets waved over his paperwork that makes it irrelevant.
Just because I'm asking, we're here.
Oh, there we go.
Waiting, there's nothing else
I
to
missed
do.
it.
You shouldn't be asking my passenger for her
I can ask
ID.
her whatever I want. I just told her she's not being stopped.
Okay.
Are you guys
So,
like attorneys in training, or are you anarchists?
no. What happens if I refuse to give you my ID?
You can refuse.
Okay. So I'd rather not give you my
Okay,
ID.
I'm just wondering what the attitude's about. Is it because you just genuinely hate police, or are you anarchist in the...
Look at the framing that
what-
he's
what
trying
is
to
it?
give here. She doesn't have any sort of
No.
And I
attitude.
can
She's
tell
been
you this is
perfectly
not
polite.
typical behavior.
What behavior?
All right, smart one.
Yep, he freezes. She answered a question with a question, and he doesn't know
Ah.
what to do.
I'm not sure what behavior he's talking about, to be honest.
It's interesting to me also that he puts lawyers in training
Well, I don't
in the same
understand what
class
he's
as
talking about.
anarchists.
Talking to you like that for?
I don't.
Yeah, excuse the language, but it's important to record your encounters with police and to retain your personal information from these people. You know, who knows? If these are people impersonating a cop, then you've given them private information. I mean, keep your privacy if you want it. It's becoming more and more of a valuable commodity in the 21st century as we're losing it more and more every day.